Oh, bother.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk with me, Yin Yang Total War. Today, we're going to be talking all about the Thrones of Decay that should be coming here towards the end of April. And I know that some of us are probably going to say, well, you know, it could come at the beginning or even in the middle of April. But let's be real, guys. They usually track towards the end of the month. Whenever they say any kind of deadline, it's going to be right up bumping on the edge of that deadline if it doesn't get pushed, and hopefully it doesn't get pushed again. 4 months seems to me like it would be plenty of time to really get things done. Now, that being said, we are going to be looking at Creative Assembly's outline for how we're going to shape this DLC prediction, and maybe when the DLC has all been announced, we'll come back and see how I did. I meant to do that with the Shadows of Change, but there was so much drama with Shadows of Change that I just said, maybe I don't follow up on my prediction video. Now, that being said, guys, I do want to apologize that I haven't been around as much as I was planning to, but I do appreciate everyone sticking around the channel. The channel is still growing somehow, and we're getting even more views per video than we were, probably because I'm not just tossing them out as fast as I can. So, guys, again, it's just been busy, very busy. I live down in the Florida Gulf Coast, and it is spring break time. That means that I have, in the hospitality industry, I have just a ton of stuff to do. I usually wake up early, go to work, come home, eat dinner, and then fall asleep at my keyboard trying to get something done. All of that being said, let's go ahead and get straight in with the Thrones of Decay. Now, we're going to be starting with everyone's favorite nasty boys, Nurgle. Nurgle has really kind of suffered in the overall Total War Warhammer experience. He is the weakest of the Game 3 factions, at least in my opinion, and I believe that that's a pretty popular opinion to have. And it's unfortunate because Nurgle is a very popular Chaos faction as far as they go. As far as his legendary lord, I do believe it's going to be Tamarkan. I know, shocker, right? But it would be crazy if it wasn't Tamarkan. This guy could really sell a DLC on his own. He's got his own campaign book. He's got his own lore. He introduced more characters, more units, brought the Chaos Dwarfs back to their full glory. I mean, Tamarkan almost saved Warhammer Fantasy, at least in my opinion. That being said, if you don't know about Tamarkan, he is one of the four sons of the Great Kurgan, and he is just, he is a force to be reckoned with. He's actually a maggot that will jump from one body to the next. I would think it would be really cool if they ended up bringing that as a campaign mechanic, but I doubt that that's going to be a thing, just because, I mean, it would be a heck of an investment to give him multiple bodies, just like the Changer, the Changeling. All of that being said about him, again, he's just a really cool character. He's going to take the form, most likely, of his ogre form, riding his great toad dragon. Now, as far as the legendary hero, I do believe that that is going to be Epidemius. And while he probably could make it as a legendary lord, I don't think that he offers enough different to really justify making him a legendary lord. Now, before anyone bonks me on the head and says, well, the Changeling got his own and he was a legendary hero as well, the Changeling had enough uniqueness to really bring to the table. I do think that they could have went with Egrim von Horseman and made the Changeling his legendary hero. I think that that was the prevailing theory before we got the Shadows of Change, but I do believe that it worked out as far as the Changeling being the legendary lord. Although up until recently his faction was basically immortal, so there is that. As far as Epidemius goes, he's really a glorified accountant. He counts off all the people that die as a result of the plagues of Nurgle. And really, I don't think that there's just enough to make him a standalone legendary lord. While he could bring some excellent buffs to the faction and to his army that he is a part of, and in fact, he is part of the Great Battle of Nuln as a legendary hero. So, I think that he's going to bring some really cool bonuses, some really cool buffs, and he is going to serve the entirety of the Nurgle faction and possibly even the Warriors of Chaos and Demons of Chaos if they make him like the other legendary heroes in the last pack. Now, moving on, obviously we're going to have the Lord as the Chaos Lord of Nurgle. This is just going to be a mirror of what happened with Shadows of Change, minus all the drama, hopefully. But we're going to have the Chaos Lord of Nurgle as the Lord, the Chaos Sorcerer of Nurgle as the hero. And as far as units, here's what I'm thinking the layout is going to be. One, I believe that we're going to get Chaos Ogres. They're going to lean into that because Tamarkan is going to be in the form of his ogre. I believe that these are going to be available to the Warriors of Chaos and the Ogres as well. And before anybody says, wait, Ogres couldn't take Chaos Warriors or Chaos Ogres, well, yes, they could, because Ogres don't care. As long as you add to the strength of their tribe, they don't care if you come back with tentacles growing out of your face or whatever. You're bringing more fighting power to the tribe, and that's what they care about. As far as the next unit, I think it's going to be Bile Trolls. I think these are also going to be available to the Warriors of Chaos and Throg. And Throg's kind of a stretch, but I do think that they should go ahead and give him access to the Warriors of Chaos, at least the Trolls from the Warriors of Chaos, because that would just make him stand out more. The next unit is going to be the Rot Knights. Now, we don't have any kind of representation for the Rot Knights yet, but I do believe that it would just, I think it would add to Nurgle and his roster really well. Finally, we're going to have the Pestigors. I don't believe we're going to get 2 units of Beastmen. I think that would be really cool, but the only other unit of Beastmen that would really fit with a Nurgle theme would probably be like Plague Bulls, for example. Now, if they wanted to go with that, I would say that'd be cool, but if they're also going with Chaos Ogres and they're also going with Bile Trolls, that's 3 monstrous infantry units. You don't really need that much. You kind of want to balance it out. And obviously the 5th unit is going to be a Feral Toad Dragon, because Creative Assembly is not just going to create a monster and not use it multiple times, or at least that skeleton multiple times. So that is really going to be it as far as the units go for Nurgle. I believe for mounts, we're going to get the Toad Dragon, and if it does come, the Rot Beast. So if the Rot Knights are a thing, the Rot Beast will obviously be a mount for probably warrior, or excuse me, like the Lord or the Chaos Hero. Maybe for the sorcerers, not sure. Anyway, moving on, I believe that we're going to be in for a pretty substantial rework. Now, we didn't really get substantial reworks when it came to the Shadows of Change, but I think that they've had more time. They know what people want, and they're going to do their best to try and get these reworks in. And I don't think it's going to be a huge rework. I just think they're going to kind of iron out some pieces. Now, if you've played a Nurgle campaign, and I wish that I had one up right now so that I could show you guys, but if you've played a Nurgle campaign, you're going to know that it is a slog and a mess, and everything's really expensive except for Nurglings, and it's just, why do you want to play it? Why would anyone want to play it? And that is kind of the problem. It's a very cool concept, especially with the cycle of growth and rebirth and all that stuff, but I think what needs to change, especially with the building cycles, is one, the infrastructure buildings need to be standardized. And when I say standardized, I mean like everyone else. You build them up and then they're flat. They don't move again. I think that you can keep the notion that income comes from every building, but if you don't have a steady baseline, you can't build a stable economy, you can't build stable armies, and you end up having to conquer the world with Nurglings, and that's just not fun. Another thing that I think that they could do is just add a technology. It doesn't have to be early, it doesn't have to be the last technology, maybe somewhere in the middle, but there should be a tech that kind of locks you into that final rotation. When Nurgle is just like, hey, we're not rebirthing anything. Everything is at the top of its game. We're going to take over the world now. This is what we've been growing towards. And that's just going to lock all of your buildings once they get to their final cycle into that final cycle. Now, as far as recruitment goes, and I think this is something that could really benefit all of the demonic factions, but I think that as far as recruitment goes, summonable units like demons, things that come from the warp, right, or the realms of chaos, should be more like the beastmen. They should be free units that summon in. Maybe they start weaker or stronger depending on the winds of magic in the area, and on top of that, they shouldn't be locked to your specific region. If your corruption and the winds of magic are high enough in a region, you should be able to summon your units, just like the Chaos Warriors can summon, well, not summon, but recruit more and more units based off of the corruption of the area. As far as the other side of the roster goes, the mortal side, I believe that they should be more standard. When you're starting a campaign, yes, Kugoth has been summoned into the world, right? Or whichever demon has been summoned into the world. It's usually by mortals. They don't usually get summoned by other demons. So here's what I'm thinking is that early game, you're really basing your faction off of mortals and some of the weaker, lesser demons. And then as it goes on, you're getting more and more greater demons, or mid-tier to greater demons. So for example, Kugoth comes in, he's got easy access to Nurglings, but he's also got standard Chaos Marauders to Chaos Warriors, etc., etc. And then as his campaign progresses, as his plagues take more hold and his corruption spreads and the winds of magic are high, he'll get more access to those other units. Now, I don't think that you should nullify the recruitment buildings, just change up how the recruitment comes in a little bit. And I believe that other than changing some prices, like prices of buildings or prices of the units to maintain them, then it really, I think that you've really got a good system there. So guys, again, let me know what you think of that. Maybe you have a different idea, but that's just kind of what I have thought on it. Okay, and with all that said, we're going to be looking at the Empire next. So as far as the Empire goes, I believe that they are going to, well, obviously they're going to need some help. We're going to talk about what they could get in a rework on the back end of this, but as far as the roster goes, I believe that the legendary lord is going to be Elspeth von Draken. Now, if you don't know who this character is, she is the foil to Tamercan. She is his big rival in his campaign book, and well, at the end of the day, she's just a really cool character. She is a wizard. She rides a Carmine dragon. She specializes in the Wind of Death, so she's going to be coming in pretty hot and heavy against Tamercan, really foiling a lot of what he's got going on as far as his strengths. Obviously, she doesn't want to take him in a hand-to-hand battle, but she is going to come in with some pretty good tools to really deal with him. As far as the legendary hero goes, this is where I'm actually going to differ on, well, I'm going to differ with quite a few of the other content creators out there, because everyone is saying it's going to be Theodore Bruckner. And don't get me wrong, guys, I love my boy Teddy Bruckner. I think he's a really cool character, but I don't think that he really fits. And you might say, well, what do you mean he doesn't fit? This is literally the Tamercan book. Well, what I'm saying is, if you look at the legendary heroes that came with the Shadows of Change, you'll notice that they aren't really tied to the legendary lord. Satang the Watcher can belong to any of the Dragon Children. Same really goes for the Blue Scribes. Same really goes for Akold Hellbreast. I mean, they can both be recruited by either the Warriors of Chaos, the Demons of Chaos, Tzeentch. It doesn't really matter. Same thing really goes for the Golden Knight. Golden Knight is a representative of the Ice Queen. What does the Golden Knight have to do with not Baba Yaga, Mother Estancia? Nothing. She has nothing to do with her, and it's really about just benefiting the race overall. So when I'm thinking about characters who are going to benefit the race overall, I'm thinking you're going to be looking at a Ludwig Schwarzhelm, the Emperor of the Champion, or the Champion of the Emperor, or Luther Huss, who is like the most badass warrior priest out there. I could be off on that. I could be way off on that, and it could be my boy Teddy Bruckner, and I'm not going to be mad if it is. But I'm thinking it's not going to be him. I don't think that he's got the name recognition for CA. CA's like, just let Amater do it. That's just me. So, moving on, I do believe that we are going to be leaning in with Wizard Lords as far as the generic Lord choice goes. I think that they are the best option for this because it's going to introduce an entire new mechanic, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, but it's going to be bringing in the Colleges of Magic. With Elspeth coming in, it is the perfect opportunity to really focus in on the Colleges of Magic, what they have to offer. We're going to be coming back to religion and knighthood probably in the final Empire DLC. I don't think that this is the last one. I do believe that we've got one more coming in the future, and we'll talk about that in a future video as well. But as far as the heroes go, I think that we're going to get the Master Engineer, and as an additional piece of content, I think that we're going to get the Gold Wizard Hero, just to really wrap up the different winds of magic that make up all of the Imperial Colleges of Magic. Now, as far as units go, I think we're going to be looking at the Celestial Hurricanum. Now, if you don't know about this, it's kind of like the Luminarch of Heesh. It's going to be a weapon that you want to keep on the back lines. It's going to have some bound spells, possibly dropping Comets of Casadnora, or some other kind of vortex spell that has to do with the Winds of Heaven. Moving on, we're going to have the Nuln Ironsides. I believe that these guys are definitely coming. Really just going to provide a missile infantry that can really hold its own in battle. I think that's something that the Empire is desperately missing as we look at this poor handgunner getting cut down by that beastman. Now, moving on, I think that we're also going to be looking at the Marienburg Landship. The Marienburg Landship is going to be, a step down from the Steam Tank, less expensive, but more readily available, as well as it's going to have its own unique things that it can really bring to the table, besides just being a cheaper Steam Tank, because why would you want that if you can just get a Steam Tank anyway? But it's going to be able to have men mounted on it that can shoot. It's going to act more like a war sled mixed with a Steam Tank. So moving on from that, we're going to be looking probably at the Knights Panther, just as an additional knightly order. Hopefully these guys will come with like great weapons or something like that to really differentiate them from the other knightly orders. Although that could probably be the Knights of the White Wolf, which I think are going to come later. So maybe instead of great weapons, we go with like a sword and shield variant to really change up what the Empire brings as far as different variants of knightly orders. Now, finally, I believe the last unit is going to be a toss-up between the Hochland Long Rifles and the Kathleen Hotpot. Now, I believe there was an interview between Great Book of Grudges and Rich Aldridge where he was hinting about the Kathleen Hotpot, or maybe it was an interview, like a written interview, I can't remember. But he was pretty amped up on it. I think that we could get it. Again, this might not be the last that we hear of the this might not be the last that we hear from the Empire, so it's something to really just kind of keep in the back of our heads to see if we get it. And again, with the Hochland Long Rifles, it's not really about the people who man them, it's about the weapon itself. So those could be on the Imperial, the not the Empire captain, but the Master Engineer, or they could be wielded by the Nuln Ironsides, or a variant of the Nuln Ironsides. But it would really bring that sniper ability that Cathay has, that the Skaven have. I don't think anyone else snipes, but the Empire is supposed to be a jack of all trades, so they should be able to get that sniper ability as well. Now, as far as mounts go, we're just going to run through this real quick. The Luminarch of Heesh, I believe that's going to be a mount. The Celestial Hurricanum, I believe that could be a mount as well. The Mechanical Steed is going to be particular to the, and I keep forgetting their names, the Master Engineer, and finally the Demigryph mount to represent Teddy Bruckner. I think that's what we're going to get, is a Demigryph mount for Empire Generals and Empire Captains. Now, as far as a rework goes, I believe that what I said before about the Colleges of Magic, I think they're going to work that in. It's going to be somewhat similar, but not just a copy paste of the Kislev Ice College system, or School of Magic, or Hogwarts, or whatever you want to call it. We're also going to have we're going to have an enhancement of the Electric Count system. I think maybe we kick Balthazar Gelt off of that system, have him solely focus on the Colleges of Magic, and then we'll enhance the Electric Count system to be more like the High Elf system, and possibly add in the State of Affairs system that came alongside Yuan Bo, and that might just be particular to Emperor Karl Franz. Other than that, I don't really think that I can't personally think of anything that the Empire could use. They could definitely use a faith system and something to do with the knightly orders, but I think that those are going to come together in the final pack. Okay, and jumping in with our final race here, we're going to be looking, of course, at the Mighty Dwarfs. And guys, I'm just going to go ahead and let you know that while I probably deserve a place in the Great Book of Grudges for this, I don't believe that the dwarfs need a huge rework. I think they could use some extra mechanics to really just kind of finish them off, but I don't think that they need a huge rework. What I do think is that they need a final focus to really round out the last of their roster and just be finished with them. I love the dwarfs. They were one of my first campaigns. I think they were my second campaign when I started Total War Warhammer back in 2016. But the dwarfs are they're pretty well done. They've gotten a lot of attention. They do play kind of boring. I know a lot of people say that. Dwarfs are unfortunately boring. They bring it upon themselves. They won't ride cavalry. They won't do magic, right? They only have so many tools at their disposal. That being said, I do want to say that we're going to get some kind of rework, but it might not be a rework. It might just be additional mechanics. So, speaking of, let's go ahead and jump into the roster real quick. The Legendary Lord and Legendary Hero can be a toss-up between Grim Burlickson and Malachi McKyson. Now, these two really are interchangeable. Malachi is going to bring that heavy Slayer presence, whereas Grim Burlickson is going to be that pure engineer presence. Malachi is the best of both worlds, but I believe that his status as a legendary hero is probably more fitting. You can have him roll around with Gotrek and Felix, and oh gosh, the Kislevite vampire, whose name I am totally forgetting right now, but I think that he makes a better legendary hero. You could utilize him with the Empire as well, because he is a teacher at the Nuln Gunnery School. Moving on from that, let's talk about the Lords. So again, we kind of got a toss-up here. We could have a Master Engineer or a Demon Slayer. Either one really works pretty well with this. I believe that a Master Engineer would be better. I've never really thought that Slayers should be Lords of armies. That's just a personal preference. Like, there should only be one Lord of slayers, and that is going to be the Slayer King himself. Otherwise, I just don't think that there's really a place for Slayer Lords, but again, feel free to differ with me on that one. As far as heroes, I believe the Dragon Slayer is going to be the best option, although if you really start digging, you could find the Brewmaster. The Brewmaster is a potential hero, and he could add replenishment to the Chaos, not to the Chaos Dwarfs, to the Standard Dwarfs, because that's actually something that they need. And if he is the hero, that kind of opens up the legendary characters a little bit to potentially adding Joseph Bugman. Now, Joseph Bugman isn't everyone's favorite. I do think that he is a really cool character, and he could really add to the game. He's been mentioned since the second or third video that we ever got, or the second or third trailer that we ever got for Total War Warhammer. The Dwarf High King, mentions him by name, so I think that he should come in, but he's more likely to come in as like a white dwarf add-on or something just to like boost up the dwarfs one more time before they close that chapter for good. Now, as far as units go, I think it's pretty obvious that we're going to get the Thunder Barge. We could also get the Doom Seekers. But actually, let's slow it down real quick. Let's talk about the Thunder Barge just a little bit. So the Thunder Barge is a airship. It's going to be a blimp, but not like the Cathayan ones. It's going to be a full-on Zeppelin-style airship. It's going to have cannons. It's going to, I mean, these things are wild. If you've never played with Chaos Roby's airships, you are Thunder Barges, you totally should. It is a fantastic time. Now, moving on, we also have the Doom Seekers. If you don't know what the Doom Seekers are, they are going to be slayers with flailing axes. Very cool unit, something that we didn't really see coming, but I think with some of the more recent unit additions, we could get these guys. Now, the final one that is probably going to be on base with everyone else is going to be the Goblin Hewer. This is really going to be a step up from the ballista, but a step down from any gunpowder weapons. It's going to serve more of that Hellblaster volley gun role, where it's rapid fire, which is something that the dwarfs do kind of lack. Moving on from that, we're going to be looking at the rune golems. And I know some people don't like the rune golems. They're like, that's ancient technology, it really shouldn't be a thing. But I do believe that the dwarfs need a monstrous infantry unit. And I know that kind of takes away from their playstyle of being just, hardline infantry backed up by a hardcore artillery. But I think that they could use it. I think it makes them more competitive. And the rune golems are just freaking cool. Now, I'm not talking about the rune guardians. Those are the giant ones that are more like the Tomb King Titans. I don't think that the dwarfs really need that. But it could be that could be in game, or we could get the Shard Dragon. Now, as far as the Shard Dragon goes, I really don't care for it. I don't think dwarfs should have a dragon. However, the reason that I think that the Shard Dragon could be in the game is because of the Kislev Ice Drake. Now, if you've looked at that, creature, then you'll know that it honestly has its own it has its own skeleton by the looks of it, and it also has its own animations. And I don't see Creative Assembly not utilizing a new model and new animations, changing it black, changing the scaling up a little bit, and just saying, hey guys, this is a Shard Dragon. It might seem cheap to some, but when you've got a limited budget, you got to work with what you've got. And I just don't see them making an entire new model like that just for an apology tour on the Shadows of Change. But again, guys, I could be wrong. Now, moving on to mounts, there's only going to be one that I think is reasonable, and that's going to be the Shield Bearers. I don't believe that we will see the oh gosh, not the Grudge Stone, the I can't remember the name of it, but the stone where they just stand there and they're unbreakable. I think that should be an ability. I don't think it should be a mount. Now, as far as their rework goes, I think that they could change the tech tree to be more like the Chaos Dwarfs, just where it's multi-tiered, or not multi-tiered, but different pages, because the Dwarfen tech tree is long and arduous and tedious, which is really kind of what dwarfs are. But you know, I do think that it could change up a little bit. Something else that I think that could really be added is making the underway something to invest in. Now, I think that any settlements that have anything to do with the Kara's Encore, and we'll talk about the Kara's Encore in a second, but anything that is basically mountainous, we should be, as the dwarfs, trying to revitalize the old trading networks, the old movement networks, because the way that it is in game currently is that there's no benefit to really uniting the Kara's Encore, right? Like bringing back the old glory of the dwarves, other than knocking grudges out. And that's more of a punitive system than it is it's more of a hindrance than it is a reward. Like, you're getting rid of bad things, or bad traits, rather than building up something new. And I think that being able to invest in the underway and really bringing that back online should allow you to jump from Karak to Karak, kind of just moving as you see fit. I think that would be a really cool system. I got that idea from a mod that did just that, particularly for the Chaos Dwarfs rail system. But with all that said, I do believe that is going to be what we end up getting for the not the Shadows of Change, but the Thrones of Decay. And that's really going to be it for the paid content as far as the Thrones of Decay goes. I know that obviously I'm going to get some of that stuff wrong, and if I'm not, well, then I will I'll just go ahead and change my channel to Prophet of Total War instead of Yin Yang Total War. But that being said, let's talk real quick about who I think the legendary lord is going to be for the free LC. So I know a lot of people are suggesting that it's going to be from one of the 3 DLC packs, or one of the 3 DLC races. I don't think so. I think what instead we're going to get is the Ogre Kingdom. I think we're going to get Goldfag Maneater, and the reason that I think that is because he is right on the path of he's right on the path from the east to the west. And because the Ogre Kingdoms don't really have a whole ton more that can be added, except for legendary characters and a couple other units. So as far as the Ogre Kingdoms go, I think that this will be a nice chance to really give them something new. They are the most they're the most underrepresented of of all the races except for Norska. Now, that being said, it could be Norska, but I just don't see Norska not getting an actual DLC. I do see the Ogre Kingdoms not getting one, and them possibly getting additional units added to their faction, but I do not see Norska being updated without being a paid content DLC as part of something else, possibly with Khorne or Slaanesh or whatever, but I think that's what's going to happen with them. And really, guys, that is going to be it. I would love to know what you guys think of my predictions, and we'll definitely come back to this video after the DLC has been fully announced, and we'll see how well I did. Like I said, I'm probably way off base, but it's definitely fun to theorize anyway. These are my these were always my favorite kind of videos to watch, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed this one. Until next time, to all my friends, wherever you are, good morning, good evening, and good night. I'll catch you later.